back to Jacob's Letters, Brother Israel, with another Connecting the Dots. I am going to be going back to the previous subject on the other Connecting the Dots, but seeing how today is Juneteenth, and I had spoke with a couple people over the weekend that said they never read the Willie Lynch letter. I was already planning on doing this, but since I was finding out a lot of people haven't read it in general, so I'm not going to do too much commentary on it. I'm just going to read it and then do another video with some commentary and my thoughts on it and linking that stuff back to the scriptures moving forward. So with that, just make sure you like, share, subscribe. Check out our affiliate channels, Mainstream with Jermaine, and then also Blaze Judah. So, all right, I'm just going to get right into it. So, let me read this introduction. Depending on which book you buy, I'll put a link for this particular one in the description. But depending on what book, if you end up buying the book, sometimes they'll have an introduction and sometimes it won't. It depends on who wrote, whoever did the illustration or whatever, the producing of that version of the Willie Lynch letter. They might add their own commentary in the beginning or whatever. As far as the introduction goes, but this one has an introduction, so I figured it'd be good just to read at least the first part of the introduction. So it says, the infamous Willie Lynch letter gives both African and Caucasian students and teachers some insight concerning the brutal and inhumane psychology behind the African slave trade, the materialistic viewpoint of the southern plantation owners that slavery was a business, and the victims of chattel slavery were merely pawns in an economic game of debauchery, crossbreeding, interracial rape, mental conditioning of the Negro race, they considered subhuman. So it's an intro. They get a couple pages of the intro here. Like I said, I'm not going to go too much into that. I'm going to just go right in. It's 60, I think 50 slides. So just bear with me. All right. So Willie Lynch letter, the untold story. Some people say that it wasn't a real letter. I don't believe that it wasn't real. I believe that it is real. And just by reading it, you could tell that it is real. I mean, even if it wasn't, it's based on true events. You know what I mean? So whether it's an actual thing that happened or not, is everything that's written in here actually did happen. So it doesn't make it better or worse, in my opinion. So this is a speech that was delivered by a white slave owner, William Lynch, on the bank of James River in 1712. So, and it says this message is still true today, which is, you'll see why it says that. But it says, gentlemen, I greet you here on the banks of the James River in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of the problems with your slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still oldest methods of control, methods for control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us, and my program is implemented, which is crazy. So one thing, we'll point out, says the year of our Lord, right? And then on top of that, if you go do some research, I'll probably do another one, but look up West Indies and see what was going on over there, just to tie it back. So it says, as our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible was we cherish, so their version of the Bible, right? I saw enough to know your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its old highways in great numbers, you are here using the tree and rope on occasion. So just see how they tie in that stuff back. Israel to Israel. Even if he doesn't know they were Israel, he's still tying it back to Rome and what was happening back then. You know what I mean? Cursed is the man that hangeth on a tree. So it says, I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from the tree a couple miles back. You're not only losing valuable stocks by hangings, you have upspring slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes your crops your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires, your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what problems are. I don't need to elaborate. I am not here to emulate your problems. However, I am here to introduce you to a method of solving. So it says, in my bag here, I have a foolproof method of controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if it is installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. Ooh, this was 1712. Fast forward 300 years, that's 2012. Crazy. Crazy how some of these numbers line up. Anyway, my method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I could take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, envy for control purposes. These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies. It will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. So this is going into the differences that he took to make us basically destroy one another on the plantation. So it says on the top of my list is age, but it is there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There's an intelligence, size, sex, size, plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley or on the hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you the outline of action. But before that, I shall assure that distrust is stronger than trust. Envy is stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slave, after receiving this introduction, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generation for for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. So this is literally the part that I actually want to talk about, and the PDF I have right here actually has it already highlighted, which is cool. But this part where it talks about it being self-fueling, once you get this process and get it into our people, it becomes a self-refueling and self-generation for hundreds of years, if not thousands. And he's going to say the same thing again, but he's going to say, basically the only way that it could end is some kind of spiritual intervention type of thing. So let's keep going. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have your white servants and overseers distrust all blacks, but it is necessary your slaves trust and depend on us. It's supposed to say they. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are the keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If you intensively for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you, gentlemen. So it says, the origin and development of the social being called the Negro. Let us make a slave. A slave. What do I need? First of all, we need a black nigger man, a pregnant nigger woman, and her baby nigger boy. Second, I will use the same basic principle that we use in the breaking of a horse, combined with some more sustaining factors. When we do it with the horse, we break them from one form of life to another. That is, we reduce them from the natural state in nature whereas nature provides them with the natural capacity to take of their needs, and of their needs their offspring. We break the natural string of independence from them, thereby create a dependency state, so that we may be able to get from them useful production for our business and pleasure. All right. So it says cardinal principles for making a Negro. For fear that our future generations may not understand the principles of breaking both horse and man, we lay down the art. So this is an art form for them. For if we are to sustain our basic economy, we must break and tie both of the beasts together, the nigger and the horse. We understand that the short-range planning in economics results in a periodic chaos, so that to avoid turmoil in the economy, it requires us to have breadth and depth in long-range comprehension or comprehensive planning, architecturalization, both skills and sharp perception. We lay down the following principles for long-range comprehensive economic planning. Both horse and nigger are no good to the economy in the wild or natural state. Both must be broken and tied together for orderly production. For the orderly futures, special and particular attention must be paid to the female and the young offspring. Both must be crossbred and produce a variety and division of labor. Both must be taught and respond to particular view or particular new language. Psychological and physical instruction of containment must be created for both. All right, it says, we hold about 6 cardinal principles as truths to be self-sufficient or self-evident, based on the following discourse concerning the economics of breaking and tying the horse and nigger together, all inclusive of the 6 principles laid down above. There's a note right here that says, neither principle alone will suffice for good economics. All principles must be employed for the orderly good of the nation. Accordingly, both a wild horse and a wild or natural nigger is dangerous, even if captured, for they will have a tendency to seek their customary freedom, and doing so might kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. They sleep. Hold on real quick. Just make sure we keep everything on track. It says they sleep while you are awake and are awake while you are asleep. They are dangerous near the family house and it requires too much labor to watch them away from the house. Above all, you cannot get them to work in the natural state. Hence, both the horse and the nigger must be broken, that is, break them from one form of mental life to another. Keep the body and take the mind. In other words, break the will of to resist. Now the breaking process is the same for both the horse and the nigger, only slightly varying in degrees. But as we said before, there is an art in a long-range economic planning. You must keep your eye and thoughts on the female and the offspring of the horse and the nigger. A brief discourse is offspring development will shed light on the key to sound economic principles. Pay little attention to the generation of original breaking, but concentrate on the future generations. Therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you, for her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. For example, take the case of the wild stud horse, a female horse, an already infant horse, and compare the breaking process with two nigger males in their natural state, a pregnant nigger woman with the infant offspring. Take the stud horse, break him for a limited containment. Completely break the female horse until she becomes very gentle, whereas you or anybody can ride her in comfort. Breed the mare and the stud until you have the desired offspring. Then you turn the stud to freedom until you need him again. Train the female horse whereby she will eat out of your hand, and she will in turn train the infant to eat out of your hand also. When it comes to break the uncivilized nigger, you use the same process but vary in degree and step up the pressure so as to do a complete reversal of the mind. Take the meanest and most restless nigger, strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, the female and the nigger infant, tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a different horse in opposite directions. Set him fire and beat both the horse to pull him apart in front of the remaining niggers. The next step is to take a bullwhip and beat the remaining male nigger male to the point of death in front of the female and the infant. Don't kill him, but put the fear of God in him, for he can be useful for future breeding. The breaking process of the African woman. Then take the female and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desire willingly. Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract the last bit of bitch out of her. Take care not to kill her, for in doing so, you will spoil good economics. When in complete submission, she will train the offspring in the early years to submit to labor when they become of age. Understanding is the best thing. Therefore, we shall go deeper into the area of subject matter concerning what we have produced here in the breaking process of the female nigger. We have reversed relationships. In her natural uncivilized state, she would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male, and she would have a limited protective tendency toward her independent male offspring, and would raise the female offspring to be dependent like her. Nature had provided time with this balance. We reversed nature by burning and pulling one civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence. By her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her psychological dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reverse roles. Still happening today. All this is still happening today. It says, for fear of the young man's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offspring to be psychologically independent. What you have, you got. You've got the nigger woman out front, and the man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation for sound sleep and economics. Dang. So basically, you had to take care of the problem of, if we're going to be wanting to sleep and have peace at nighttime, we got to make sure that we scare these niggers into not wanting to come into our house and kill us in our sleep, And if you breed them right, then the children won't do it. You don't have to worry about it no more. So it says, before the breaking process, We had to alertly and guard at all times. Now we can sleep soundly, for out of frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her infant slave process. He is a good tool, now ready to be tied to the horse at a tender age. By the time the nigger boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken and ready for the life's sound and efficient work and the reproduction of a unit of good labor force. Continually through, though the breaking of uncivilized savage niggers, by throwing the nigger female savage into a frozen psychological state of independency, by killing the protective male image, by creating a submissive, dependent and mind of the nigger male savage. We have created a orbiting cycle that turns on its axis forever. So this is the part I was talking about. So basically, by doing this, he says it's an orbiting cycle that turns on its axis forever. Unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the position of the female savages, we show what we mean by example. Take the case of two economic slave units and examine them closely. So, like I said, right here, he says, unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the positions, then this is basically going to go on forever. So it says Negro marriage unit. We breed two nigger males with two nigger females. Then we take the nigger males from them, keep them moving and working. Say the one nigger female bear a nigger male and the other bears a nigger male. Both nigger females being without the influence of the nigger image, frozen in independent psychology, will raise their offspring to reverse positions. The one with the female offspring will reach to her, be like herself, independent and negotiable. We negotiate with her through the herm by her and negotiate at her with at her will. The one with the nigger male offspring, she being frozen with a subconscious fear for his life, will raise him to be mentally dependent and weak, but is physically strong. In other words, body over mind. Now, in a few years, when these offspring become fertile for early reproduction, we will mate and breed them and continue the cycle. That is good, sound, long-range, comprehensive planning. So this is possible interloping negatives. Let me double check something to make sure that this is, I think this might be the editor's things. No, I think this is part of it as well. It's not an editor's note. So it says earlier we talked about the non-economic good of the horses and the nigger in their wild or natural state. We talked about the principle of breaking, tying them together for orderly production. Furthermore, we talking about paying particular attention to the female savage and her offspring orderly future planning. Then, more recently, we stated that by reversing the positions of the male and the female savages, we had created an orbiting cycle that turns on its axis forever until this phenomenon occurred and reshifted the positions of the male and female savages. Oh, this is one I have. I actually have the Willie Lynch letter, like the physical, like little book or whatever. I had this part highlighted in there. So pay attention to this part again. So it says, our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon occurring, for they say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time. If it can touch a substantial original historical base, listen closely, if it can touch a substantial original historical base, and they advise us that the best way to deal with the phenomenon is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions to each illusion can twirl into its own orbit, something similar to a floating balls in a vacuum. So in other words, what they were doing is this needed to happen to be able to create confusion so that we do not connect back to a substantial or original historical base. And what's more original than the so-called niggers realizing that they're Israelites, you know what I mean? And that it was prophesied in the scriptures that they will be going into slavery for 400 years into a land that they didn't know, right? So that stuff had to be hidden, because otherwise, if we were able to get in touch with this, then it can start that phenomenon that he talked about that can end this cycle. So it says, read this last part again. It says, and they advise us that the best way to deal with the phenomenon is to shave off the brute's mental history. So you gotta make sure that history is lost and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions. To each illusion can twirl into its own orbit. So they give multiple different, you know what I mean, religions, multiple different things like culture, you know what I mean? So they give us a new culture, a new way of life, you know what I mean? The different names, African, American, black, African, black, or whatever, you know what I mean? All those different names, and then make you feel like you want to be proud to call yourself black versus be proud to call yourself an Israelite. You know what I mean? Which is your original historical base that you need to be able to pull us out of this situation as a whole, anyways. You know what I mean? So it says something similar to floating balls in a vacuum. So that's basically what it is. They're just continually just floating around in this phenomena of illusions that was created by these people. This creation of multiplicity of phenomena illusions entails the principles of crossbreeding the nigger and the horse, as we stated above, the purpose of which is to create a diversified division of labor, thereby creating different levels of labor and different values of illusions to each connecting level of labor, the results of which is a severance of the points of original beginnings for each sphere illusion. Since we feel that the subject matter may get more complicated as we proceed in the laying down our economic plan concerning the purpose, reasons, and effect of crossbreeding horses and niggers, we shall lay down the following definitional terms for future generations. So now they're going into like I guess like a couple steps of like learning for them. So it says orbiting cycles means a thing turning in a given path. Axis means upon which or around which a body turns. Phenomenon means something beyond ordinary conception and inspires awe and wonder. So in other words, a phenomenon would be, you know what I mean, something outside coming in. So Israel being delivered, the Most High, when he said, with the stretched out arm and fury poured out, he'll bring us back into the land. Those type of things, you know what I mean? Us not being, you know what I mean, well, at least the 144 not being harmed by the pestilences and stuff like that, or the two witnesses being able to breathe fire out of their mouth and destroy whoever tried to kill them while they're in the midst of their prophesying for 3.5 years. Those are phenomenons and wonders and awes that is talking about, and more, obviously. So multiplicity means a great number, and then sphere means a globe. So they're just giving you definitions. So if these people didn't understand what he was talking about, he's like, I'm gonna break this down. So if y'all don't understand these words I'm using, you understand what they mean. So it says crossbreeding niggers means taking as many drops of good white blood and putting them into as many nigger women as possible, varying the drops by various tones that you want, and then letting them breed with each other until the cycle of colors appear as you desire. What this means is Put the niggers and the horse in a breeding pot, mix some asses and some good white blood, and what do you get? You get a multiplicity of colors, F ass backward. Unusual niggers running tied to backward ass long headed mules. The production of itself, the others sterile. So let's see. It says the one constant, the other dying. We keep the nigger constant, for we may replace the mule for another tool. Both mule and nigger tied to each other, neither knowing where the other came from, and neither productive for itself, nor without each other. Crazy. Crazy. So, controlled language. We're almost done. We got a couple, I think, like a couple more slides left. So, it says crossbreeding completed. For further severance from the original beginning, we must completely alienate the mother tongue to both the new nigger and the new mule, and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. You know, language is peculiar institution. It leads to the heart of people. The more foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of society. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of another country, to the extent that he knows the body of language, to that extent is the country vulnerable to attack or invasion of a foreign culture. For example, you take a slave. If you teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets. He is then no more a slave, but you can't. But before you can't fool him any longer. Being a fool is one of the basic ingredients of the incidents to the maintenance of the slavery system. So, in other words, like, obviously they kept us from reading for a really long time. And then just from just learning things in general, you know what I mean? And then on top of that, there's even more when it comes to the legal system and all the other things behind the scenes. We still don't know what the language is. So like legalese and stuff like that, certain words that we use and we don't know what they mean. And then even on top of that, a lot of words in the English language are put curses on people and or spells and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm gonna keep going. So it says, for example, if you are told a slave that he must perform in getting out our crops, and he knows the language well, he would know that our crops didn't mean our crops, and the slavery system would break down, for he would relate on the basis of what our crops really meant. So you have to be careful in setting up the new language, for the slave would soon be in your house, talking to you man to man, and that is death in our economic system. In addition, the definition of words or terms is only a minute part of the process. Values are created and transported by communication through the body of language. A total society has many interconnected value systems. All these values in the society have bridges of language to connect them from orderly working in the society. But for the language bridges, these many value systems would shapely clash and cause internal strife or civil war. The degree of conflict being determined by the magnitude of issues or relative opposing strength in whatever form. All right, so it says, double check, see where we at. Like I said, I don't want to read too much of the like the editors, notes and stuff in here. I just want to make sure we stay on track with what the actual letter itself said. So it says, for example, if you put a slave in a hog pen and train him to live there in incorrupt incorrupt in him to value it as a way of life completely, the biggest problem you would have out of him is that he would worry you about provisions to keep the hog pen clean or partially clean, or he might not worry you at all. On the other hand, if you put the same slave in the same hog pen and make it slip and incorrupt something in the language whereby he comes to value a house more than he does his hog pen, you got a problem. He will soon be in your house. So it says, let's see. I think this is food for thought from the internet. I'm not putting that. I'm not gonna read that. Like I said, I'll have this stuff in there. Actually, I'll just read it just because it says, "Dear Black Americans." I'm not sure where this is coming from. That's partially why I didn't really want to read it. But it says, "After all these years and all we have been through, have been thought together, we think it's appropriate for us to show our gratitude for all you have done for us. We have chastised you, criticized you, punished you, in some cases even apologized to you, but we have never formally nor publicly thanked you for your never-ending alliance and support to our cause." I'm not sure where that's from. Let's see. Oh, I guess that was the end. That was the end of it. So this particular part right here was the last part of it. I thought I had a little bit more to go, but I guess I was moving through it. But yeah, so that's the Willie Lynch letter. Like I said, I'm not doing too much commentary on it. Just wanted to read it, and then I'll have the link in there. You can go back and look through it yourself. You can look at some of the commentary, some of this extra stuff that's in here if you want, from the person that helped edit it. Looks like it's just talking about more like recent events and how it relates to the Willie Lynch letter. But I'm gonna do that kind of thing on my own. So with that being said, I'll catch you on the next one. Like I said, I'm gonna go back through it and touch on the points that I really want to touch on, relate them back to the scriptures. So I hope y'all have a blessed one. I'll see you on the next one.
I keep my eye on heaven, I keep my eye on y'all. Me and the devil will always be at odds, and I left all that money in the streets, knowing that his blessing will increase if I obey. In the belly of the beast, 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 in the belly of the beast. Yeah. From the darkness to the marvelous light, I stand. Chosen people called to be an archetype of the Lamb. Blood of Abraham through Christ, we got rights to the grace through faith. I'm holy as DNA on my hand. If I'm missing, I must repent. I gotta spin like a fan. Went from the fence to the bench, and now that pitch in the stands. That's home run, but running home for like I'm running this sand. The world is ending. You can see the vision all on the gram. I step back. The spirit will let me know in advance. The devil's raining, but the spirit will let me know when it ends. Most higher, could he gave me fire, but he gave me chance. Was a liar. Me and my sin would often hold hands. Watching a wire, I see the life of my friends. Flame under a jar of cocaine, water in frying pan. Word became flesh, and it's the light of man. Ghetto boy went from a snap to a royal diadem. All my brothers running the trap, you still a hired hand. Paper can't bait me back in, don't ever try again. Illuminati got your mind, soul, and body. They kill you and celebrate their gangsters like John Gotti. These wicked cops need to be charged with armed robbery, felonious homicide for catching body at the body at the body. Sunnis and Israeli head wraps, we look like Saudis. No Islam, we from the land of Abraham and Isaac. They see our heads and try to red dot it. Scholars know the truth but try to hide it. I'm done with thinking Coptic, trauma behind my optics. When I read the Gospels, the consensus is synoptic. When I think of the apostles, I know they were philanthropic. When I think about the church, the way of Christ was not adopted. They support the beast system. When he speaks, I teach wisdom. On my feet, I stand firm. Liberty can't proceed with them. God's grace, it can't be earned. This ain't no elitism. This is so that we don't burn, following worldly tradition. I keep my eye on heaven, I keep my my eye on y'all. Me and the devil will always be at odds. And I left all that money in the streets, knowing that his blessing will increase if I obey. In the belly of the beast, 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 in the belly of the beast.